I said prior to the intro there, we're joined by Liam O'Brien and Niall Deegan to discuss their book, Illustrated Tales from the Limerick Terraces. I suppose it's the newest book that's going to be there for all Limerick fans with this renowned success we've had over the last few years. And I suppose co-authors was kind of a way I'm using to describe ye lads, but I think it was your idea originally, Niall, or it was an idea from both of you. But Niall, just could you give us an idea of where the book came from before we get into the nitty-gritty of it?
Yeah, of course. I'd say it was April 2020. Just happened to be on Facebook one night when I saw Liam's supporters page. Decided to join it. Loved to read the stories and the pictures that people were posting. And it came to me when I said, what about the people that aren't on social media? How are they going to see these pictures? How are they going to read these stories? So I have a small bit of graphic design skills that I learned in college, and I decided to create a book. Spent a couple of nights at home just creating a cover, and the original book was called Tales from the Terraces. Work commitments, next 2 years that flew by, didn't look at it, and I came back to it in April of this year, 2022. I kind of looked at it, who's going to help me with this book? And again, I thought of Liam. Sent him a little message, and within 20 seconds, he'd come back to me and say, will you take a call? I spent only 2 hours that night on the phone, Liam did it, speaking about the book and hurling and so on, and straight away I kind of knew after speaking to Liam that this would be published. He kind of said, let's change the name. Tales from the Limerick Terraces. He picked Charlie Milford, which was amazing. Contact John Cregan about using the crest on the book. And to kind of narrow down just one day, which originally was the 2018 final. So I spent the next couple of weeks kind of creating a template for the book. And a couple of weeks after that, I got COVID, and I missed out on the final. And I suppose I spoke to him a couple of weeks afterwards to say, could we go to 2022 for the reason that I'd missed the final. I'd like to see the fans' pictures, read their stories. It's fresh in their minds. But the weather was amazing, and I knew the photographs were going to be outstanding.
And your part there in that, Liam, was it straight away you knew this was something you wanted to get on board with?
Oh, 100%. When Niall got in touch with me back earlier on in the year, saying he this idea about doing a book of like the social history about people going to games. Like, I mean, we're all very aware of these fantastic books that focus on the games and the players, but there's a huge story there in terms of the social history of games, and it's something we all grew up with. It's part and parcel of what the J is about. How people go to the games, and sometimes the stories of how people go to the games or who they met sometimes even supersede the games themselves. You know, many of the greatest stories I've heard from my father and my uncles and stuff from way back in the 50s and 60s is about, you know, the famous Munster final in '61 and the big crush in the Gaelic grounds, rather than the match itself. Actually, I think that match itself was probably poor enough, but so I thought that was a fantastic idea by Niall to kind of flip the camera around and put the supporters in the spotlight and their story of the day. And the greatest thing about, I suppose, social media, I know it gets a bad rap. Believe me, you know, I was never a huge fan of it myself. And that was kind of, we were all determined when we started the page off that it would be always positive and always welcoming for people of all ages. And Niall's book reflects that so well, from people who went from Limerick, the traditional ways, by car, by train, people who travelled from other parts of the world, as we'll see in a while, and one or two people like Niall who unfortunately couldn't make the final for various reasons as well, you know. So it's kind of like a family album of Limerick supporters, basically, in and around the day of the All-Ireland final last July.
Yeah, it's certainly very memorable times for Limerick. I suppose anyone for you, Niall, that stood out? Any, like we know the names as a couple will run through here, the likes of Hammy Dawson and Bob Carlin. But anyone stand out to you that's a very interesting story that you wouldn't have got, I suppose, the way Liam is saying, if you just went to the mainstream and just saw the report from the game about the players?
I think Mairead Quirks is one. It's kind of relevant to my own. Mairead is living in London. She's originally from Croom. She wasn't allowed to travel because of an operation she had because on her leg. So that kind of stood out to me.
And for you, Liam, was there anyone in particular that kind of stood out to you as, you know?
I suppose there's a few certainly off the top of my head. I mean, I think the Wesley Morrissey from Patrick's Well, originally from Patrick's Well, living in Dubai. I think we have a photo of him there. He sent us a wonderful story of his journey coming from Dubai to be at Croke Park that day, and as you can see by the photo he sent us, meeting these three fellow parishioners, Aaron, Kean and Diarmaid Burns, recently crowned Hurler of the Year. And it's a wonderful story to see somebody going to such lengths to come home and support their team. Now, I think the Limerick, in the fullness of time, Limerick's journey in lore and story will be remembered more than any other for the last 4 or 5 years, because we were the only county in either code to have a COVID All-Ireland, nobody there, a half-filled stadium last year, and this year in blazing colour, 83,000 people, blue skies, and it was just an unbelievable atmosphere. And I mean, the joy from the photos in the book leaps out of the pages at you, and the colours. And as I say, that's Niall's forte, is really working with the images and getting those images to work right as well, you know. So that was probably the most memorable one for me. But there's lots of others too now.
Yeah, I'm sure people have to go in and buy it to see all of it. But I suppose it's not. It's for a good cause as well. I suppose it's really important that the proceeds will go to Milford Hospice. And you might just explain how people can purchase the book, or where they can get it, or what's the plan in that regard, because I know it's available for pre-order at the moment, but one you might want to tell us there. I'll throw to you, Niall.
Sorry. Pre-orders are through the limerickbook@gmail.com. We're taking orders either by PayPal or Revolut at the moment. And again, as I said earlier, we hope to start shipping in the next 2 weeks. So Liam doesn't know this, but I literally just received a copy of the book an hour ago from the printer. I'll share it with you later, Liam.
Yeah, I suppose that's the beauty of doing these things kind of live. But the Milford Hospital aspect of it, I suppose, whose idea was that? Because we know we've seen the Limerick senior hurling and under 20 team with Milford Hospital in recent years, and you know, it's a really worthy cause, I suppose, is what I'm trying to get across there, Liam.
Absolutely. I mean, I suppose when me and I were discussing about the proceeds of the book, I mean, we wanted it to go to a good cause. And I suppose the Limerick Hurlers led the way a couple of years ago with the Hit to WOA and the whole association with Limerick G and Milford Hospice. And I mean, I don't need to kind of overstate the important role that Milford and the wonderful staff out there play, not only in Limerick, but in the whole of the Midwest, and the wonderful, wonderful work they do for people when they need it the most. And I've seen that firsthand as well. And I'm sure, as I say, many of our listeners would have seen it as well. So I think it was a bit of a no-brainer, I suppose, really. And the fact, I suppose, that the book contains over 500 supporters, Niall, is it?
150 is almost, yeah.
Yeah, 550
supporters. And 192 images, yeah.
So it's essentially a book for Limerick supporters by Limerick supporters, and the proceeds of it will go to support one of the Limerick's greatest organisations, charitable organisations as well. So I think it was a bit of a no-brainer to do that, really, you know. And we dedicate the book as well to the staff of Milford Hospice. Yeah,
I suppose it's Milford Hospice has done so much work in recent years, and I suppose the likes of COVID and them kind of highlighted more than ever. Matt, it looks like you were wanting to get something in there, or
Yeah, first of all, Jack, I would like to congratulate the lads, and it's an absolutely wonderful concept. And like, Liam touched on it there when he spoke about, there's reams have been written about great matches, all sorts of matches, and great players and all that sort of a thing. And as someone that was raised on a diet of people cycling to Thurles and in one case a pony and trap to Limerick, for matches, one of the most important stakeholders in our great organisation is our supporters. And it is very welcome, that we would shine a light on our supporters, shine a light on the great rounds that an awful lot of them go to get to see the games, like the piece there on Wesley Morrissey. I haven't seen the book, obviously, but I'm full of awe and full of admiration for the whole concept. I think it's absolutely wonderful, and like the concept to put a book like that together, it's novel, it's innovative, it's new, and the fact that it is that the proceeds are going to go to a worthy cause like Milford Care Centre. I think this is a project, Jack, that ticks all the boxes, and I'd say to you again, lads, well done, lads.
Yeah, it certainly ticks all the boxes in that regard, and I suppose it's a good time to be a Limerick J fan. It's a good time to have a book like this with All Ireland finals now. Unfortunately, we've only been able to go to 3 out of the 4, and obviously Niall, you missed another one as well. But there's some star players there that will stand the test of time. And I know myself around Christmas time, as we're approaching, it's a bit early to say the C word yet, but we are approaching that. It's a real good time to look back at all these players, and will for many years. But this current crew, and I know you're both obviously very keen Limerick fans, and we did have the All Stars the other night, and we all know what Matt's opinion on the All Stars, and we should be going for 15 Limerick fellas every year nearly. But I suppose while we are on the subject of Limerick hurling and we had the All Stars, Liam, what was your, I suppose, immediate thoughts after the All Stars?
I suppose it's probably an argument we have almost every year as to what exactly what's the critique, what's the actual rules for picking the All Stars, because it seems to be a moving target as to how they can move players around some years and rigidly fix players for a position another year as it suits. I don't know. I mean, 7 All Stars, it's not bad. Certainly, I suppose we only got 6 in 2018, did we? Yeah, 6 in 2018. Yeah. But if you consider particularly, I think a couple of things that I suppose that people didn't count on. I don't think. I mean, we played most of the season, bar one game and a bit, without a generational hurler, Cian Lynch, and I think the work that the likes of Will O'Donoghue, for example, had to do to compensate, like when you go to a game, it's only when you see the likes of Cian Lynch in action. I know he does all the magnificent first touch and his tricks and all that, but it's the space he creates around him and draws fellas in. That was missing for most of Limerick's games. So all the players around that quadrant in the middle of the field, that vital area, had to work so much harder, maybe even sometimes just to break even in games. And like Will O'Donoghue in particular, I feel sorry for him that he probably was overlooked. Even the likes of Tom Morrissey, to be honest, I think these lads work really hard, a lot of thankless work. And of course, I suppose, look, Sean Finn is the one that everyone's talking about as well. I suppose we could go on and on and on about debating it. It's just funny that the way that the criteria that's required to get an All-Star seems to be a moving target over the years. And I'm going to go way back now, and Matt will remember this. In 1973, Eamon Cregan scored something like 3 goals and 11 points in the Munster Championship. And for an All-Ireland final, they moved him back to centre-back. And he played an almost man of the match, a pivotal role in Limerick winning it, snuffed out Pat Delaney. Cregan got no All-Star at all. Yes, Eddie Kerr, who didn't even play in the All-Ireland final, now granted he probably had a great Leinster final, got an All-Star. that makes no sense to me. But again, that's just the way I think about it. What do you think, Matt?
I agree with you, Liam. I'm perplexed by how they come to their conclusions. Jack is smirking at me now because he knows full well, how I feel about it. And I agree totally with Will Donoghue. Now, last week, Jack and I, we were trying to second guess these august body of gentlemen, and we did come up with the two midfielders. But they're not that was not necessarily the two midfielders that we would select.
Yeah.
But we were second guessing what they were doing, and I think Will O'Donoghue was desperate, unlucky. Now, of course, I'm really pleased that they didn't make the mother of all gaffes in the goalkeeping position that that Nicky Quaid has got it, and rightly so. But the gap has moved from number 1 to number 2, not far. Because I think what I would say shame that Sean Finn didn't get an All-Star. Without doubt, the best, most consistent cornerback in the country in 2022. Not a doubt about it. I don't think there's anybody could bring up a vestige of a cogent argument to say that there was anybody better than him. Likewise, you move out along. We thought, because of the vagaries and how they go about it, as you explained there, Liam, I thought that Declan Hannon wouldn't get one, because I thought they'd be on accommodating this one and that one and the other one in the half-back line, but thankfully he got it. Your point about Tom Morrissey is valid. Seamus Flanagan, and the Munster final of 2022 was eulogised at the All-Stars till the cows come home. Seamus Flanagan got 8 points from playing that game, and he didn't even get a mention.
Yeah.
We won 2 in a row, we got 12 All-Stars. We win 3 in a row, and we get 7. I remember the day, and you probably remember it, Liam. I don't know if you do or not. But where the nominations consisted of nominations for goalkeeper, nominations for right fullback, and left fullback. And the successful All-Star came out of that group. But now they have open license. It's open season. Yeah. We will name the defenders. Look, how Sean Finn isn't an All-Star for the 5th time. I don't want to be annoying myself, to be honest.
Yeah, you would think about too much. I think Sean Finn and William Donoghue are definitely the most aggrieved. That's where I was laughing, was that I remember Richard McCarthy won one in 13. It was the first All-Star we had in 6 years. We had 1. We were delighted, and now we're giving out about having 7, that we should have more. But Niall, I'll throw it to you there, your thoughts on the All-Stars, and I suppose you've been good enough to give us your time there for the last 20 minutes or so. So maybe your thoughts on the All-Stars, and just a final, I suppose, not plea for people to get the book, but a final word on the book before I let you go.
Similar to Matt, I think number 1 and 2. If Nicky Quaid didn't get one, I thought Sean Finn would have, but it happened to be the other way around. Sean Finn, he was robbed. But everyone is talking about Tony Kelly. He's in a different position every year, similar to what Liam has just said. Look, it was a time that we had no All-Stars, I think 7, and a player of the year. I was happy enough with it. I would like to have 1 or 2 maybe, but look, let's go for 4. We get more next year, hopefully. I know I'm pushing it out, but I suppose going back to the book, just a few people I'd like to thank, if you don't mind, Jack.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank John Cregan, Paul Foley, for allowing us to use, and the County Board, of course, for allowing us to use the crest on the book. All the contributors to the book. Naturally, we'd have no book without them. But James London, he has to get a mention somewhere, Liam.
Of course.
He helped us out. Kieran Crowe, Joe Lyons, the Green and White, our printer, Mike Halpin, and I suppose Mike McGuire from Limerick Libraries, who's going to stop the book as soon as we go to print.
Yeah, and just to follow up, I suppose, what we're hoping for with the book, and it's going to be in the library as well, the library going to take 10 or 15 copies off us. We're hoping that in 30, 40, 50 years' time, somebody can walk in and say, wow, that's my mother, that's my dad. look at them when they were kids going through again. So it's the social history there.
Yeah,
it's a timeless book, and thank God it's coming at a time where Limerick are so successful. But a huge thank you to you lads for not only coming on today, but providing a book like that. Matt spoke very well there about it. You can get it at limerickbook@gmail.com. That's where you email and let the lads know how many copies you want. And as you said, Niall, hopefully in the next couple of weeks you'll be going to print and people have them in time to sit around the fire at Christmas time and recap this year, 6 months out. But as you said, down the years, you can look back on a very unique All-Ireland win and a 3 in a row for Limerick. And hopefully it'll be the middle of a 6 or 7 in a row. But for now, anyway, it's a nice bookend at 3 in a row. But a huge thank you to Liam and to Niall coming on for talking. And I'm sure we'll have you back on sooner, close time when the book is out, and maybe we'll go through it ourselves. We'll have a physical copy. But a huge thank you to you, lads, and we will be in touch soon.
Thanks, lads. Good luck.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
And so, Matt, back to me and you. Just good to talk to the lads there and get an idea, because
the concept is absolutely fantastic. Because, in bad times, the Limerick supporters have been absolutely fantastic. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
What they suffered in terms of disappointments, near misses, and dashing of hopes for 45 years before 2018 was simply phenomenal. But they kept coming, they kept supporting their team, and for them, for the Limerick supporters, it's absolutely fantastic that they are enjoying this wonderful, wonderful odyssey. And fair play to the lads to hone in on those people and shine a light on them. And absolutely fantastic concept.
Yeah, definitely. And I know myself, I love a physical copy of a book or something like that, especially when it has pictures. It makes it a lot easier to read. So to have so many pictures and so many tales from people. And look, we've been there as well. I know when we did our top 10 moments, one of mine was just listening to the Cranberries play out in Crow Park. And, you never see that in an article. You have to be there and experience it, and to see other people, say they felt the same thing or things like that. It's really special. So a huge well done to lads for providing a book like that. It'll be if you missed that, it'll be on our website where to get it. But I'd say get them sooner rather than later.